Today on the show, strategy plus action equals using speed as a competitive advantage. Success in business and life is a constant back and forth of charting your course and taking the consistent steps every day to move you forward. Both are critical. My guests on this show range from hardworking entrepreneurs starting from scratch to visionary leaders of cutting-edge companies looking to scale. I help you understand the strategies that are working for them and the actions you can take to model their success. For me, a show like this is all about joining forces with my guests to dig deep and create something new for you. Whether that's a small insight to get you unstuck or a path of massive growth through customized marketing and creative sales initiatives. Welcome to Strategy in Action. Welcome to episode 25 of Strategy and Action. Chris M. Walker is on the show today. I'm just thrilled to bring him on. We get into the 117 businesses that he's got. We get into all that stuff. But I'm just impressed with Chris. I wanted him on specifically around this topic of, speed of implementation, right? The speed of going from, hey, I've got this idea to at least traction towards it, right? It doesn't have to be all the way to the end of the goal and this thing is created overnight, but that first step, that immediate step, that let's go, let's do something. It's critical in business, and I think it's the only way he's been able to do as much as he has. But also, I wanted Chris on the show because I'm just so impressed with him as a person. How many times he's helped me out. I mean, I'm in part of his groups on Facebook and bought from him, and part of Legiit and his marketplace there. And he, as a person, he's just so incredibly helpful, to everyone. And that helpfulness sort of is infused in everything that he does, in all of the groups that he does, the trainings, the academies, the courses, his giant Legiit marketplace and the way it runs and flows. There's a part of him in all of that, and that's why they all feel as good as they do. I had the good fortune to have Chris on the show, the Jason Croft Show, my driving around show back in Dallas a couple of years ago. I was impressed with him then, and that's just grown exponentially since then. Everything that he's built and how he's built it, I'm so impressed. So this conversation was such a blast to have with him. So I'll stop rambling. Let's jump in with Chris M. Walker. Chris, how is it going?
Always doing good, Jason. Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. So Chris is, he's a powerhouse in the SEO world. But over the last couple of years, I've sat back and watched him build his entrepreneurial empire to expand so much further. So impressed with what you've gotten going here. I mean, from Legiit, the what would you call it? A freelancer marketplace of epic proportions, I would say. Just huge. And there's one thing about making something even big in scope, and then making something good so that it's a great experience. And I've been witness that it's all three things, as a user of the platform, on the platform, it's so great. And I want to dig into some of that. I was making an intro for you today, but then you went and started like 3 more companies while I was writing the intro. So it's hard to keep up. So we've got, what do we have? We have Superstar SEO Academy, Legiit.
Superstar SEO is kind of a collective business.
Superstar SEO, Superstar Academy. Yes, Superstar SEO is your brand, your work that you do everything. Superstar Academy, Legiit is the marketplace. Just launched Legiit Leads, so an expansion of that. I'd love to get a little explanation. It's just for my own curiosity. You've got the Profit Academy, which I know it's sort of, content and everything. ContentPress, right? Just acquired Snapt. I want to dig into that as well. But so you can see, listener and viewer, while it's very hard to keep up, So the post you actually put out today, funnily enough, I just shifted gears and wanted to talk about this because I wanted to talk about what you were talking about in there is the importance of speed in business. And I think that is a key factor, correct me if I'm wrong, in being able to pull off most of what you've done in that. Is that true?
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, there's more to it than that, but definitely the gap between idea and execution is where is the difference between success and less success. I'll put it that way to be positive.
Yes. Yes. And yeah, certainly not to simplify things, like just do things fast and everything else takes care of itself. But I'm so drawn to this topic because, honestly, I'm just finally kind of getting there. I've been the poster child of the opposite of the, well, I should really do this and that. And it's just this, abyss of nothingness that happens. And when you can get in those modes, even if you have to do it in sprints and spurts and all of that stuff, if you can there's so much momentum that comes out of just taking almost any action.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's first of all, don't beat yourself up. That's more common than it isn't. I guess would be the way to put that.
I don't want to be common, Chris. Come on. I don't want to.
But it's also something that frustrates me in dealing with other people, especially when I do like a consulting call with someone that's like really skilled and really smart. And I'm like, okay, so this is the plan. Let's do this. And then I watch and then nothing happens. Or they'll be like, I'll follow up and I'll be like, so how has that thing that we talked about, that should be ready right now, right? And they haven't even started. And then, not to pat myself on the back, but when I have an idea, if it's not like started almost right away, or at least like the next day, depending on what it is, I start getting pissy with people because like we've made the decision. So why wait around and think about it and plan about it? And I would put this differently if I weren't trying to be professional, but it's just very frustrating to me. There's no reason to waste that time. Like if you've decided this is what you're going to do, then just do it. And like, that's where a lot of success comes from. Now, I'm not saying you shouldn't, on certain things, you need to plan and make sure that things are right, but don't let perfection be the enemy of good, I think, to use a cliche.
Yeah. For sure. And I think as someone who's been on the other side of it, and maybe this helps the people out there who have struggled with this, someone who has, like myself, who's struggled with it, it hasn't even been like wanting things perfect or wanting things a certain way. Sometimes I can't even explain it because I'll go down the checklist, right? Like, okay, am I afraid of it bombing? No. Am I afraid of it succeeding? Because that's a thing. No. Mm-hmm. Am I waiting for all these things to line out and be perfect? No. And so when I hear these other explanations, sometimes I'm like, yeah, but that's not what's keeping me stuck. And at the bottom of it all, I think, and again, I hope this helps somebody hear this who's felt the same way, is that sometimes there's not a reason other than just inertia, right? Like you haven't taken that first step. And when you'll just do anything, I just went through this yesterday. Like, there's things I've been needing to do in my business, and had a coach slap me in the face a little bit and go, do this, this, and this, and I did it, and the whole day transformed, right? Because it just took those actions and those momentums. And I think it's huge. And sometimes you don't have to know why. You don't have to get to analyzing mode. It sometimes just take a step and move. And to your point, so give me that, what you've found. Is there a criteria? Is it just gut? Is it, hey, just take an action and then we can change things?
I mean, it depends on the particular thing that you're doing, because some bigger projects do require, to plan before you execute, or it's not going to work. But for something simple, like I decided yesterday I wanted to list my product on Product Hunt. So I asked somebody, what do you need to do? And I was blessed enough that someone had some experience and told me. Had they not, I still would have just done it. And, it may not have worked as well, but I got it done. Like, it's literally less than 24 hours later, I made a decision and I did it. I guess the trigger point is once the decision has been made, there shouldn't be any time between the yes, this is the direction we're going, and the starting of doing that. There's no reason for a delay in between those two things. So I guess that's kind of the answer, is that think about things that you want to do, and then decide if you're going to do them. If you have decided you're going to do them, you need to start doing them. The longer you don't do it, the longer it's going to be until you do it. Like you'll build reverse inertia, if that's a thing. So
yeah, well, yeah, and I think so, and I think that's great, because it's that even if it wasn't, like, let's say if it was, you know, a bigger deal to get up on Product Hunt, or a harder process, it's that first action, right? It's that take that first step, find that answer. Oh, you got an answer back, act on that immediately, and then go. And it
right,
honestly,
like it may have ended up being a complicated thing. So, I mean, it wasn't, but just hypothetically, had it been, I would have been started on it already. You know what I mean? Like, instead of like waiting in to start, and then I have to wait even more time because it's a complicated process, which has happened with some other things that you can't really get into. But the fact that in fact, the more time consuming something is going to be, the better it is to get started, you know? So with this, I could have started today and it would have been done tomorrow. So it's not that huge of a thing, but I thought it ended up being a great example of making a decision and getting it done. There's a reason that the slogan for Legiit is get more stuff done. And that's part of that. So, and it also gave me a chance to do a cheap plug just then.
Nice. Bing. Go to. Yeah. And I tell me and the listeners about Legiit.com, Legiit.com. This episode is sponsored. No. In a little bit, you know, what it is, and then that evolution that it's taken, which is huge.
So it started, I've been doing freelancing for a long time, and I was using different platforms to do that. So I was very fortunate on it. But the platforms I were using, either they weren't doing it the way I wanted it to be done, or they started having massive problems. So I first just took my stuff over to my own like personal website. And some of the people I knew from being in that freelancing community wanted to use my website to sell their own stuff. And so I happened to connect with a developer around that time. So I was like, maybe I'll just start my own. I intended it to just be another product in my product line, but it's grown into this massive thing with, you know, thousands of customers and freelancers selling different services. And one thing I've tried to do to make it different than other options out there is to give the freelancers the freedom to create their own brand and their own business out of it. Like I was fortunate enough to do. Get a higher, I want to put this the right way, a higher quality customer that will not accept some of the lower quality $5 things you'll get on other sites. So I wanted to match those kinds of people, like people that treat their freelancing work not as just a side hustle, although that's accepted. You know, we still have people like that, but they treat it as a freelancing business. And then businesses that need people that take it seriously and kind of match them together. And then one of the things that I've tried to do to make it grow, and one of my strengths in business in general, is creating communities. And we've kind of a community that where, like, instead of when one person makes a sale, they don't see that as a competition. They see that as a success for both of them. Like there's constantly people posting, I got a review, I got another order, you know, and instead of pardon my language, shitting on each other, like, you know, you would in certain industries and different things, everybody supports each other. And that's been kind of the key to our success on that. So ultimately it's a business that matches freelancers, like basically I should say matches freelancers and customers, but there's a lot more to it. At least I hope so.
Oh yeah. I mean, you've got over 9,000 people in that Facebook group for Legiit right now.
Yeah.
We've had the high
that's
level.
Just a fraction of the people.
Oh yeah. Actually on the oh, wow. That's amazing. And we've had the high level guys on, the founders of that platform. And that was everything for them. That's their entire growth, is they doubled down on community and let the users, they empowered those users to expand and take the business kind of where they saw fit and make it their own. You've got to market this thing on two sides, right? You've got to get the buyers and the sellers coming in. How has that been a unique challenge as opposed to some of the other endeavors?
It's definitely hard because you have to, not only do you have to grow both sides, you kind of have to grow them at the same rate, more or less, you know, give or take. And at one point we had way more customers than we did freelancers. And then for a while, the balance shifted way too far the other way. And we brought in a lot of people from other marketplaces, and they ended up bringing over some of the bad habits that they brought from the other marketplaces, and because they accept a lower standard. So we had a lot of people not making sales, but now it's gradually we're getting that equilibrium. And then the other challenge is not only is it just a raw number of people, but you have to find people with different needs and then the skills to do them. So for example, a lot of my following is from SEO, and a lot of the reputation Legiit has is an SEO marketplace, but we've been bringing in a lot of content writers. Content is catching up to SEO as our biggest category. And then there's graphics, development, voiceover, and all these other. You have to find people that can do that work, but also people that need that work at kind of the same pace. So yeah, it's tough because it's not a traditional marketing thing. And when we try to work with agencies for like ads and things like that, explaining the model to them has been challenging because they're used to like a Shopify store where you run where if you sell, I don't know, t-shirts with cats on them, you run a Facebook ad to people that like cats and you hope that you have a good enough design to buy. It's not that simple for us. So that's been, You're right, that's a big challenge. And one we've had to kind of learn as we went, instead of waiting around and, trying to figure it out before we even executed it. We just kind of learned it as we went and done okay with it. There've been some setbacks, but it's done well.
Yeah. And another example of speed, like you only know what you know now because you've tried 16 different other ways, going forward with it. And how are you, because I see that as the challenge. It's interesting, the amount of people that don't know even about these marketplaces. Have you tried, who is your ideal to get in there and purchase? Is it the individual? Are you trying to get agencies to utilize you more? What's that sweet spot of avatar?
Ultimately everyone, but agencies are big spenders. So, one of them will drop $20,000, $30,000, $50,000 a month. Whereas somebody that just needs a logo for their Facebook page will spend $10 a month, but every time they need something, they'll come back to us. So it's kind of an array of people that we have. We have, just random individuals that need a task done here and there. Those are harder to scale, but they also drive up the order count, which, from anybody that's dealt with a payment processor is an important thing to have. But then we have big agencies, which are easier to target with paid advertising because the ROI is higher, like at least the immediate ROI as opposed to the lifetime value. So those are kind of the two ranges. So what we don't have a lot of is like freelancers or affiliate marketer types, and we've kind of appealed to them a little bit too. But the two cores are just regular people. That sounds disrespectful, but I think you know what I mean. And then like big agencies. So that's kind of the two targets.
So there's kind of there's a middle ground of maybe the one or two person, shop
and we have a lot of those too. Don't get me wrong, but they're really difficult to find a way to appeal to,
Gotcha.
So at least that's the experience so far. That's still something that we want them to, of course, but we're still working on a way to appeal to them as well. Because it's easy to say, hey, you need a presentation for a PowerPoint for your presentation at work tomorrow. Here's somebody that does that for, I don't know, 10, 15, $20, whatever it is. Or you're an agency with hundreds of clients and you just don't want to screw around with the link building yourself. We can appeal to those people too. I haven't quite found the right angle for the people in between. So.
Gotcha. So tell me about Legiit Leads. What's that expansion?
It is a software as a service that is designed to help agencies, and I guess people that call themselves agencies that are actually freelancers, find more clients and find leads. So if you were looking to help if your niche was dentists and you wanted New York, it's kind of a generic example, but you would just put in dentist and New York. It would go out and find people that whether they need SEO, whether they need blog writing, whether they need schema, there's about 10 different things that you can search for. It'll pull in a list of leads. Then you can email, call them, whatever it is that your preferred outreach method is, and sign them. And then right there in the dashboard will be people that can fulfill from Legiit the things that you have searched for. So you search for dentists in New York that need SEO. you find some and you have some suggestions of people that can do the work for you. So it's like most of the work of your agency is done for you. All you have to do is sell. So, and we're going to have some training on how to do that too. So
that's huge. That seems like a kind of an answer to what you were just talking about, that middle group, right?
Yeah. That helps with those folks a lot because they don't have huge budgets, but they do want to make a profitable business for themselves and, live a nice $10,000 a month lifestyle,
Yeah. So it's kind of an agency in a box, a little bit, white label
for the most
solution.
Part, yeah. I mean, literally it does everything except for the selling. So
yeah,
if I could figure out a way to automate that, I would too. So
it's coming. I'm sure it's coming.
Yeah,
AI.
And to be perfectly honest, it gives us something to run ads to that will help grow Legiit itself because, even if we run an ad to $100 service and it costs us $50 to do it, we're still going to lose money because we only get a small percentage of that. So we had to have a higher target, just giving a little strategy out here, but we had to have something that we could run ads to with a higher ROI, but we also wanted to create something that actually helps customers, clients, freelancers, and, everything. So I think it's a great synergy.
Oh yeah. What's that? And so you've taken that foray into software in the past. What's the kind of the differentiators on how to approach that? Is it harder, better, maybe harder in the beginning, but a longer tail payoff?
The immediate ROI is much better because, it costs 10, 12 grand to build out a nice SaaS and you can make that back in one webinar, so wow. The immediate payoff is better. The long-term valuation is not going to be as good because with exceptions of stuff like, I don't know, HubSpot or Salesforce or something like that, most SaaS have a somewhat limited lifespan. At least that's what I'm finding. Not that you can't maintain it and keep it going, but you're going to tap out your audience most of the time, especially with something smaller like that. So the long-term payoff isn't going to be as good, but it's great for making cash. And you can definitely make a living just putting out 2 or 3 SaaS a year and supporting them well. So then you can use stuff like AppSumo to drive traffic to them. My other software, Audiit, did very, very well on AppSumo. So,
oh, nice.
So I guess the answer to your question is it's not nearly as big of a managerial challenge as something like Legiit is. You're also not dealing with people's income, which is a responsibility it's nice to not have. And and the development time is not nearly as hard and the ROI is faster, but it's unlikely that something like that's going to get $1 billion valuation someday. So,
I think most people go into it with, okay, I'm going to be the next Salesforce instead of here's my 2-year out, I'm 2 years out with this. Let's make that its lifespan. And if something else happens, great. That's interesting. Because having done it, I didn't know that.
To be clear, I'm not expecting it to any software I put out to ever have a limited lifespan, but sure. I don't it's more of a goal of it is cash flow as opposed to making it a core business. So you can definitely make one SaaS that's like a core business, like Hyros or something like that. But you can also make them as like add-ons to an existing business as long as some people do that and then they immediately abandon it after the initial surge of sales. And I guess what I'm afraid of is it's going to come off as that's what we want to do because it's not, because we will keep supporting it and adding on to it as long as there's people using it. But it's also not the core business. So.
Gotcha. I understand. Yeah, that makes sense. I want to shift gears a little bit to something else I've heard you talk about and read about that, again, I think it's a really key business strategy or just, mindset that you've got to be in. And it's pulling yourself out, especially as you make that evolution, right? From freelancer doing that kind of work like you've done for a long time, you mentioned, and now I own a company. I think there's a very different mindset that you've got to take on. And again, just like speed in business, I don't think you expand the way you have with these different brands and different initiatives without this mindset of, okay, it's CEO time, it's leadership time. You joked about it in the post a little bit, which was, just go be pretty face and, be the logo on the box and get out of people's way a little bit. How how have you done that? How was that a very purposeful shift? Was there one moment that you're just like, okay, I'm really screwing this up, I need to pull myself out?
Not exactly. Like for a long time, is recent. As a matter of fact, the last time I talked to you was right around the time that I hired my first person. That was like 4 years ago. But no, it's just something I've come to realize over time is that there's only certain things that I'm actually good at, and I need to get other people that can do them. Your time only scales so much, and the more, if somebody can do something, there's always that nobody can do it as good as me thing. Well, first of all, you're not that special. So no matter who you are, like, I know in our society we're taught everybody's special. You're really not that special. There's nothing you can do.
I'm a snowflake, Chris. I'm a unique snowflake.
There's nothing that you can do that somebody else can't do at least 85% as well as you. So the more people that you can get doing those things, the faster you can scale. And it kind of ties back to what we were saying before, the more you can do. So it didn't happen intentionally, but as I added more skill to the team, I prefer to, I don't like to think of people as VAs or assistants or anything like that. I like to think of them as team and, skilled people. So the more I added, the more it started as a joke, to be honest, when I'd be like, hey, have we done? Yeah, we did that like a week ago, Chris. Okay, I'll just go back to my corner over here being the pretty face on the package. And then for some reason that Colonel Sanders analogy came to me because, people view him as the guy, well, he's dead now, but they viewed him as the guy that was literally running the company. But ultimately he was just the character on the sign. And right. I've joked, and, I do more than that. Like I do make decisions and I do literally go execute certain things and, but ultimately I'm not just the face on the package, but my two things now are just to be the face on the package. And eventually I want to even get out of that and just make decisions and set the direction. So if you intend to grow to any scale, and you don't have to, by the way, like this is just where I've gone with it. You can make a good living just being an agency owner and, having 10, 12 clients. But if you're going to grow to a point where you have a team, you need to let them do as much of it as they can, do what they're good at. You just make the decision, set the direction, and get out of the way. So, and maybe you could have like the long-term vision. Like Steve Jobs was very, very good at that, at seeing where he wanted it to go. And I've equated it to being that you're Aladdin and that your team is the genie that makes your wishes come true. So you tell them what you want and they make it happen. So
that's awesome. And yeah, they're only there, and your genie is only as good as your hiring, your processes, your just like getting those people and then supporting them. Mm-hmm. It's definitely a different mindset shift to go into, but you don't succeed without it. There's just no way.
Well, I mean, it depends on the level you want to get to. Like I said, if you want to make a full,
and that's what I mean by succeed in this expansion. Yeah. I only bring that up because I feel like a lot of entrepreneurs tend to crap on people that want to have jobs or just want to make 10 100 grand a year or something. For whatever reason, they look down on people like that, and I don't like that at all. So I try to make a point to say that this is what you do if you want to do what I'm doing, but it's not what you have to do. Yeah, so. And that is a great point. I was talking to somebody the other day, and she loves what she does. She has a service-based business, and her coaches, her mentors talk about the next level. Right now, you start a group, and you start this, and you start teaching what you're doing. So she's like, I don't want to do any of that. I don't have the tiniest desire. I want to do exactly what I'm doing, and she'll expand that way. But I think that's another thing that's just instantly. I get maybe just because we see so many examples of it, and we see that income increase, and so shiny object a little bit. We run down that path. Or I think what you're getting at too, which is interesting, is that little bit inside that feels like we have to, and we don't. We can carve our own path in this, and hey, these are the parameters. I like my schedule as an entrepreneur. I have control over this at this level and this income. That's a good point.
Yeah, one thing I see people teach when they teach how to get clients is they say, what does every business owner want? They want more sales and more customers. It's like, not necessarily. Like I've gotten that as an objection when I was still learning, that I've got more business than I can handle as it is. And that's a failure on my part, because I went into that assuming that that particular prospect or lead wanted more business, and they don't. So you need to figure out, if you're doing from that perspective, you need to figure out what they actually want and if you can provide that to them. But you also need to figure out what you want and not just listen to what other people say that you should want doing what you do. So there's no reason you have to expand beyond a certain point. There are days when I wish that all I had to do was, just fulfill my services and take the rest of the day off. So, but there are, that's not what I've decided, and that ultimately wouldn't make me happy. But figure out what makes you. I always say at the end of my streams, figure out what you want out of life and go out and get it, because that's really what you should do, is figure out where you want to be and then just reverse engineer what it takes to get there, and not get off on these other tangents and directions.
Yeah, and I don't know why it's so difficult at times to identify, because that is 95% of starting and making progress, is just deciding, just that one decision. It's like, this is what I want. And when people really get nailed down to like, okay, what do you want to build? This doesn't mean forever. This doesn't mean the only thing, but decide on this one thing. What do you want to do? And then go towards it. Yeah. And it's such a simple question, and I don't know why it's not easy for everyone.
There's too much entertainment. There's too much distraction. I could get off on a whole thing here, but there's too much opportunity. There's too many people that are good at selling you things that you may not want or need, and I try to be cognizant of that in some of my advertising. Sometimes I do go too far in persuasion, but where you can be persuaded into something that you don't need, shiny objects like you talked about. Or, you may not 100% know yet where you want to go, and you'll get pulled aside by someone who has great marketing. Or, there's just, if you have decided, there's so much awesome stuff in the world right now. It's easy to get pulled into, buying a PlayStation 5 or, whatever it is that will entertain you, as opposed to what will actually serve you. So.
Oh yeah. How do you keep that focus and discipline once you've decided? Because I think you've done that really well.
This probably isn't going to be the answer you want, but balance is not something I'm very good at. I have a very addictive personality. So whatever I'm doing is the only thing I'm doing, and I give everything to that. That's not necessarily the best way, but work-life balance isn't something I'm going to ever really have, I don't think. So I commit entirely to my business. That's not perfect, but that's what's worked for me. That's how I stay focused. If I have even like a weekend where I just screw around and go to a movie and play a video game, it takes that next Monday, I'm wrecked. So I have to focus on it. I don't really take vacations, although occasionally I do, because it takes me so long getting back that I'm like depressed because I can't get back into the swing of work, because whatever I'm doing full thing. So that's why that's one of the reasons I don't have any vices. I don't drink or smoke or do drugs or anything like that, because I know that if I did, I would go all in on that. So don't be like me. I don't think is ideal, but be aware of your own qualities in that way. If you're someone that can balance things, you should, but give things the attention they deserve. So that's probably not a great answer, but
it is though. And I think the takeaway is number one, self-awareness, knowing where your strengths lie, and how to point them in the right direction. But then the other takeaway is, even if for you, it is, for someone out there, they have a family, they have this, going out with friends on the weekend is unbelievably important to them, all of those things. Well, the time you dedicate to work, be all in and be that insane focus. I think that's the takeaway, that you don't have to do it for your entire life, but those moments, you've got to have some of those moments.
Yeah. And I'm not going to say I don't do those things, but I can't do those things frequently, or I won't be able to flip the switch back on. So that's how I've learned to deal with it. It may not be, it wouldn't be what a psychologist would tell you is healthy, probably, but that's what's worked for me. And and nobody, it's okay to not be happy all the time, but your overall average, it should be closer to happy than not happy. And I am, for the most part. So.
Well, yeah, and that's the thing. Like that's accomplishing those things. Like that's the thing. It would be different too if you were miserable in your addiction to business, right?
Right.
You know, that'd be a very different animal.
Well, and that's what a lot of people think when they say I don't want to work all these hours. To them, work is a bad thing. Like, and I think that's permeated heavily in our culture. I don't think permeate's the right word, but in our culture is that work is a thing you only do because you have to in order to pay your bills and live your life. To me, work isn't something I want to do as little as possible, you know? So I think that it's important to understand that for you, not you, but you know, for someone, that work may just be the thing you do because we live in a capitalist society and you have to have some money to survive. That doesn't mean that's what it is for everybody. So
yeah, that's huge. Well, awesome. How can people get more info on you and connect with you as they need and head to Legiit and all those good things?
Definitely sign up for Legiit.com, 2 I's. And you can also find me on Facebook or on YouTube. Just search Chris M. Walker and you'll find me there. You can also find me in Google and wherever else. So.
Perfect. And who's the ideal folks that should reach out to you and all that?
I mean, if you need help with a business, if you need help making some extra income through freelancing, if you just want to learn some SEO, or you just want to talk business, whoever, you know, I'm pretty accessible, I think. So.
Absolutely. Definitely. Well, this has been awesome. Any other way we can help? Any challenges out there? Anything, like you were looking for help on the product hunt deal yesterday? Anything we can help with?
You kind of put me on the spot. Nothing immediately comes to mind. Just keep doing what you're doing, and this helps intangibly, I think. So just keep making content, and I think it'll come to need. But there's nothing in particular I need at the moment, so I wasn't prepared for that question, so I don't have an answer.
I got you on one. That's good. That's good. Awesome. Thanks so much for being here. We'll see you all next time. Thanks so much for tuning in and being a part of this show. If you ever need help building out custom strategies for your business or deciding what actions to take next, head over to MediaLeadsCo.com and let's connect. I'll talk to you soon on the next Strategy and Action.